Hi, welcome to Excel for Educators, Episode 3. My name is Alicia Parker, and I'll be your host. In this video, I'll be covering the basics of filtering data. I'll be demonstrating this on a Windows 10 computer using Excel 2016. If you're on a different operating system or a slightly older version of Excel, much of this should look the same for you. So alright, let's get started. This is a spreadsheet of fake data that might have familiar data elements if you work with data in a school or a district. In Episode 2, I explained how you can sort data, but a second common need is to properly filter data. So in this video, we'll cover the basics of filtering. Sorting and filtering can actually be accessed in two different places in Excel. If you're on the Home tab and you go to the very far right, there is a section titled Editing, and there is a sort and filter icon there. You can also go to the Data tab and the Sort and Filter section in the middle of the toolbar. It doesn't really matter which place you use, but since we're here on the Data tab, let's use the filter icon right here. Notice that it looks like a funnel, which is an object we might use to filter physical items. The whole idea is to narrow what we are looking at without actually removing any of our original data. You can turn the filters on just by clicking the filter icon. Notice that a small down arrow appeared at the top of every row. Now, I want to pause here and show you a few caveats. First, I'm going to turn off the filter. If I had only one column highlighted and I click the filter icon, notice what happens. Only that column gets the filter arrow. It's the same idea if I select one particular row and then click filter. Selecting a row or a column will narrow what is being filtered, so just be mindful when filtering that you don't have a whole column or a whole row selected. You can always select the top row and then click filter, because generally your column headers are there and you want your filters to be in your first row. Okay, so let's click on one of those down arrows. In this column, we have 4 different options. Every record in this data set either has an ELA, Math, Science, or Social Studies in column J. If we wanted to filter and only look at ELA, we could just uncheck the other 3. If you look at the bottom left of the screen, you can see we are now only viewing 112 of the 474 records that were found. So now we might want to filter this further. Perhaps we want to see only records from the teacher with the last name Hernandez. The easiest way to do this is to uncheck Select All and then simply check Hernandez. This avoids having to uncheck every teacher's name except Hernandez. Now, we've limited our record list to only 7 records. If we wanted to apply one more filter and only look at students who had a score of 4 on the state test, look what happens. We don't have that score. It means none of the students who have an ELA course associated with Hernandez had a 4 on the state test. That data isn't missing or deleted, it's just been filtered out by our filtering funnel. You can tell that there are records not showing based on the row numbers on the far left. Notice how the numbers jump from 1 to 48 to 70 and so on. The rows in between are hidden due to the filters. We can remove filters in 3 ways. We can either go back to each column and select All, or to remove all the filters at once and return to your data set, you can just click on the filter icon. The third option is to click on this clear icon. This clears your filters, but leaves the arrows on the top row for further filtering as needed. Now, let's try another way of filtering. Let's say we want to use the course grade column and filter for all our students who are not passing with a 70 or higher. If you don't want to click all those checkboxes, you can use the numbers filter and select less than. A dialog box pops up and you can insert the number 70 and click OK. You can also do the same thing with text. Let's go to the last name column and choose any student last name that starts with S. If a guidance counselor was assigned student last names that began with the letter S and wanted to check in on students who were not passing the course, this would be a quick way to filter this list. A third way to filter is to use the search feature. Using the last name column, let's type in the last name Smith in the search box. Notice that both Goldsmith and Smith pop up. We can either leave it at that or simply uncheck the one we don't want, and our list filters to what we entered into the search box. This is a much more efficient way than scrolling down a long list and finding Smith to select that last name. Okay, so that's the basics of filtering. But before I wrap this up, I want to point out one thing that can sometimes cause issues in filtering. In this data set, I did not have any columns that were blank. I'm going to insert a blank column between course name and course version. Now, watch what happens if my cursor is in the columns somewhere between student ID and course name, and I turn on my filters. Notice that the other set of columns did not get the filter arrows. So if I were to filter all my 9th graders and then try to filter on teacher name, I don't have the filter arrow. In this case, if I want that blank column in my data set, I need to highlight row 1 before I turn on my filters and then click filter. Now I can filter by 9th grade and teacher. And my blank column is still there if I need it. So that wraps up basic filtering. I hope these tips help increase your efficiency with Excel. Check out my additional Excel for Educator videos for more help on using Excel. Until next time, this is Alicia Parker with Excel for Educators.